fire. Okay. I just wrote this down the other day and I actually recorded. I have so much stuff I got to finish for you all, but I wrote because people, what I'm going to be heading into is this experience, giving you all experiences that are based off of sound and light. And it's like, okay, my inner masculine energy is like, okay, Gabrielle, you can create all this stuff, but you got to explain to people why this would be something that they should dive into within. And I'm like, okay, let me write something creatively about the experience of sound and light. And so I wrote this down. I said the experience of sound and light. I have so much in my notes. I have 868 notes in my phone, on my laptop, poetry, all that stuff. The first elements of creation, sound and light, before there was form of any kind, before creation, there was nothing. The cosmic womb of all, the great wisdom of all, the sacred yoni and phallus then combined to create the Big Bang, internal and external divine creation, reflecting all that was and ever will be. From these first aspects of creation, we had vibration and light. These created divine emanation in different forms. Light became fixed in different strains, and vibration took on tones. This then created consciousness. At the root core of your being is this knowing, this same wisdom. When we know, we can then remember, embody, become. You are vibration, you are sound, you are light. These elements of creation can manipulate your energetic, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual fields down to the cellular and molecular level. Feel into the wisdom that each of your cells is a divine symphony of the Big Bang on repeat. Your body is a reflection of each and every system external to you. The more you melt into this wisdom of creation and no thing, womb, the more you are able to capture and embody deeper layers of love. And then I wrote, the return of the mother is here. This means more than a divine feminine awakening internally and externally, but a righteous return and balancing of the divine mother, father, and son. Truth is love. Your perception is ever changing. The world is destined to turn within more and more with the rise and return of the mother. She represents what is not seen. She represents the abyss. We are so focused on external stimuli and pleasure. We also have placed so much emphasis on receiving outside assistance for matters that we can find the answers to within. Now is the time to return. It is time to remember. Know that the wise man knows that he knows nothing. Your wisdom is ever changing, but the experience of the divine is ever present. And then, Then I talk about all this other stuff. But I'm like, it's so important that people understand what's kind of occurring in the atmosphere right now is this divine feminine awakening. And the awakening or the return of the divine mother doesn't just mean, the awakening of the feminines or even the feminine within the masculine. It's also a deep healing of the masculine, a deep balancing of the systems at play externally and internally. And we're in a period of death, of witnessing the death of these systems. And so observe this beautiful oneness within that one created two, or one became two, two became three, three became seven, which is this physical reality that we know of. There could be another reality where, one became two, two became four, four became 14. We have no idea. But this is the constraints of the laws of reality that we live in, that we know of, and how we humans describe divine concepts. And there's so many different ways to describe it, but the return of the mother is also the return of the Kundalini. And not just the Kundalini, but the correct usage, the wisdom of the serpent. And so It's all just very, very, very fascinating. You are the cosmos. You are all the layers within and without. You are me. I am you. It's very, very, very beautiful. You have the mystery schools of the masculine and the feminine rising, the feminine being arts and ceremony and purging and circle healing, emotional, mental, physical, trauma clearing, light language, creative arts, expression, channeling, oracle, seer, prophetess energy, and the masculine mystery schools, which are the initiations and the wisdom of those things, sacred geometry, math, all of these elements. The astrology would be feminine, astronomy would be the masculine aspects. These things are coming together, and we're going to watch as these shift in our lifetime, slowly but surely. And things may feel like they're dying at times, and even aspects of self and aspects of how we may define things. But this is all setting the stage for the mother, father, and son uniting hundreds of years down the line in very unique ways. So when I say return of the mother, this is a task that I have, is to embody the Shekinah in every aspect of my being and my output in my work for all of you, but knowing what that is to the core as I continue to expand, and knowing that I must give you the experiences to connect you with your Shekinah, with your mother, your father, your child, with the internal mastery. We have too much external. The internal mastery would also be the feminine. So anyways, it's so important. All of this has just kind of been something that's building up. It's less about, we have so many people saying, I'm the reincarnation of this, I am that, I am these layers of being. And I was writing my bio, which I'm going to be posting an important video kind of series next week for all of you. It's going to be pinned on my profile, and it's basically me introducing myself and saying, it's so funny because I have this internal battle within that I just need to surrender to. It's like, okay, we go live, we have to talk like this, like humans, but oftentimes I feel really called to just be nothing, to become and embody the wisdom with all of you that we are just conscious awareness experiencing existence. The more I say I am this, I am that, I am not that, the more I am putting separation between me and what is limitless, when we are supposed to represent and honor all that is limitless. So when we begin to identify things, especially I look back at the beginning of my journey and really resonating with certain archetypes that came up. And this is what will guide you. This is what will lead you to certain elements of your blueprint, even in the higher spheres where you're an alien. You've got many different bodies. You're in the Orion constellation. You're also in Sirius, and you also are in, Arcturus and Andromeda. You've got all these different bodies and layers. Even then, you still are identified with a specific ray. 1 became 2, 2 became 3, 3 became 7. We dictate or talk about the 7 rays a lot, the 7 main colors of existence. And so you could technically say those rays and those tones of energy, the musical scales, and the 7 main colors would dictate a specific field of consciousness. And that created, a specific DNA blueprint or function of that ray. And so it's like, okay, I connect with being a blue ray being from, Orion. And I am of the Shekinah clan, of the Dragon Council, of the, 99 elders in this specific galaxy. And it's like, okay, I have a whole, a bunch of notes, but also a notebook that is very much around how I connected the dots of this to the different specific, I always really connected with Mary Magdalene, with Yeshua Christ, with the Buddha, with Kuan Yin, with Saint Germain, with these elements that are like, okay, well, this connects with violet flame, and this connects with the 6th ray of devotion, or whatever you want to look at it. These specific beings and energies emanate, I want to become Christ. That's something I have Whispers of My Heart on my album, WOMH. Listen to that song. That's like the song of my stream of energies on my Apple Music, Spotify. And it literally, I speak of, I want to become Christ. I want to be Christ. I want to create heaven on earth here and guide people to the kingdom. But what I am just doing is emanating a specific energy that my blueprint connects with. And my blueprint is still, even the Akashic layers are still identifiable, which is still pushing forth an energy of separation of identity in a way. You are the entire universe. You are the yoni and the phallus that created this entire universe that we live in. You are literally limitless. And yet, we must honor the parts of the spiritual journey because, like I said, we are birthed down here and we must birth ourselves from down to up. So it's like, okay, we continue to expand. It's like, I'm on this journey and this earth plane is dense. So it's like, okay, I went through this, heavy experiences, whatever you've been through in life. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. I want to be these things. I don't like driving. I like, roller coasters. We figure these things out as we grow older. And then we understand in our 20s, 30s, whatever, whenever you're awakening, your 10s, these children that we have that are born, you guys as parents are doing an amazing job. A lot of you are assisting in deconditioning or making sure there is not as much conditioning that you experienced. And when I say conditioning, I just mean those limitations, those boxes that, are placed. So, Big Geezer, remind me to answer that question in a moment. But, as we continue to rise into awareness, it's like literally the Matrix is a really great example. We're asleep and then it's like those key points, follow the right rabbit. You might see a book. Like if I tell you my story, I went to, and my nose is like, music has always been a huge part of my life. I've always loved music. I was a violinist and I was fairly good at it. I loved it. I wanted to go to college part-time for music, biomedical sciences. I wanted to find a cure to cystic fibrosis because my favorite music teacher's child had cystic fibrosis and it was really close to my heart. All these things. I wanted to be a researcher. I went to college for a year in high school studying biomedical sciences. And then I had a breakdown, trigger warning for anyone. So please leave if I'm talking about mental health and various traumas. But I had experienced a lot of loss in my life. And then what ended up happening was I was put on anti-anxiety medication that then caused a chemical imbalance in the brain a year later when my primary care physician doubled the dosage and I was 17 years old, about to turn 18 in my senior year of high school. Immediately within a week of the double dosage, I had extremely negative thoughts and I did not want to be here anymore. I was then put into a mental health institute, which I have literally, I worked with them so much that they were called the loony bin in my phone. And that experience opened me up to a little bit of the feminine within, the empathy, compassion, seeing people that were really struggling. I wanted to psychologically help them. I wanted to be the chaplain who prayed with me that I felt understood by. I was like, wow, I grew up Christian, Lutheran Christian, always questioned the Bible, never felt like people got Jesus right. It just felt wrong. Like I just was very logical. I said, how does science mesh with the Bible? It doesn't. Why is everyone taking this stuff literally? It was just really weird to me. But anyways, I then decided to go to college at Central Michigan for religion and cultural global studies. And through my 3.5 years there, I decided I wanted to work on international peace and justice. So I was, and from what it probably seems like, is I was striving for a lot. So I was head of diversity on campus. I was a multicultural advisor. I was holding events on campus. I was doing all of these things, pantsuits, and I'm going to be a diplomat. I'm going to go into politics, change up the system, all this stuff. And I went to Korea, and the whole time I was depressed. I did not want to live anymore. I was in and out of the mental health institutes. I was seeking fulfillment externally, but there were little things, little beacons. I would scroll on Tumblr every night and I would save pictures to my phone, and they would be pictures of enlightenment and quotes. And of course I studied religion. So, I was always lost in the books, the sutras, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, learning about all these different things. I always went through, whoa, this expansive energy. And then I remember one of a close friend. You'll either have a friend or somebody or something that comes up that triggers or plants the seed. And she was like, you know, my spirit guide, talking about her spirit guides. And I was like, I've heard of that before. You know, she was like, yeah, you just open the space to find the name of your spirit guide and you connect. And one of my sorority sisters, I love her to death. She's amazing. And my goodness, anyways, so I found the name of my spirit guide and she presented herself to me, and she would always come when I was having a depressive episode, and she would always guide me out. And now I know it was me doing that for myself. But it was this really real thing that I was experiencing at that time. And there would be little glimpses of the divine. And then it took me going through an abusive relationship, going to Korea, not being supported by my university that I had done so much work for, to then have a mental breakdown, attempt to take my life. And I ended up back in the mental institute. I think it was 6 years ago. That was the last time. And I got in a relationship with my high school sweetheart, moved into an apartment with him. Not the best option. Could barely work. I was trying to apply for disability. I had catatonic depression at that point. So I used to have to, my body couldn't move. So I used to have to get help moving my body. Like if I was in a bath, sometimes I would just have such a hard time moving. I'd have to guide each muscle to like, okay, we're moving this, then we're moving this. And I would just space out for hours at a time. And at the same time, I was trying to work this job, taking care of boys that had low functioning autism. So I was like trying to maintain all this stuff. And at the same time, God, the divine, was all around. And I was struggling so bad. And I hit rock bottom, moved into my grandmother's basement. And at that point in time, I said, absolutely the F not. What is my life right now? I dropped out of school, had to move into my grandmother's, but I was on top of it. People knew me. And that's when I went through, I feel like, a really large physical ego death, because I lost all of my functioning because of how I had been functioning. You have to think my soul said, Gabrielle, stop moving, stop, because I was go. I got to prove myself, and that all stems from my father dying. And this idea that I was him, that I was supposed to be like him, that I was supposed to accomplish all of these things. And it can be so damaging to be the child that people say, oh, you're going to be this, you're going to do this, you're going to, and you have this drive of like, yeah, I want to make great change. I want to, bring peace to people. I had none of that myself. So it throughout that, I was getting, going on psychic websites, like, give me some hope, and I found this spiritual shop in town, and I started going there, and I met like a really great, trying to think. Yeah, I think I met her like right around a huge activation time. Yep. When I was in my grandma's basement. I had a tarot, my first teacher, I met him on Craigslist. This is so wild. I met him on Craigslist. What was I doing? I was 18, 19, working at Starbucks. It was my first summer back from college. I was living my best life, had my, my car. I loved it. It was decked out. I was the Lana Del Rey weekend stan, and that was when Cardi B was popping, and, Bodak Yellow, all that stuff. Anyways, so I was living my best life. And I remember I went on Craigslist. Why was I even on Craigslist? I don't remember. But there was this ad that was basically looking for a model that would do a spiritual photo shoot. And I was like, ooh, that sounds super cool. It was free. I didn't have to, and he was willing to pay with like, I think, psychedelics or whatever. And I had been doing psychedelics since I was 15. So that's also another reason why I think I was veered kind of naturally towards what was outside. I did not want to be here anymore, though. I was like, what the heck is the point of being on the physical plane if there's such beautiful energy, out in the cosmos? Anyways, not a good way to think, because there's a reason why we're here. But I remember I met him. He was Jordan, this bald dude with a ginger beard. And I had all these change of outfits, and I might post like a series of the pictures from years ago. That's when my hair was super long and black and healthy, and just, I was in my prime. And I remember feeling so uncomfortable, but he really helped me like unleash. But anyways, he ended up giving me my first tarot deck, and we would meet at this nature spot that ended up being like my nature spot all like for years and years until I moved. I would always go there. It was very private. No one else knew about it. And so he gave me my first deck, and he was talking to me about the age of Aquarius and all this stuff. And I was like, what the heck is he on about? I don't know what he's talking about with these constellations, but it's doing something to me. Okay. And this was all before I dropped out. This was all before anything. So I had always been kind of like, so anyways, in my grandma's basement, I met Margaret, and Margaret knew Jordan, my first teacher, somehow. They knew each other. Margaret was 78 and Jordan was like in his late 20s, 30s. So I was like, wow, the connection points. So she was an empath, highly sensitive person, and clairsentient. And when I got my reading done from her, I felt like she truly understood me, and she also triggered something. So then she told me, if you come back at any time, just book with me. You don't have to pay. I want to like spend time with you. And I said, yes, this is so cool. She led me to some books, and Alice Bailey, who's amazing. She started what people would call the New Age spirituality now. The 7 rays, all of these things that people talk about actually stem from a 1800s, early 1900s, H.P. Blavatsky. Look up H.P. Blavatsky and Alice Bailey. Check them out if you're interested in esoteric inner initiations. Alice Bailey is an amazing feminine figure in the early 1900s that was setting the stage for all of us. And you also have Samael Ain Vieux, which I always say it wrong, but he has a lot of wisdom around the serpentine energy, how to work with the Kundalini. Anyways, and some of this stuff is on my website in the resources part. But I began to work with Margaret, and at that time I was offering free readings on Reddit because I was like, you know, I just want to test this out. I had a few decks at that time in my grandma's basement, and she went off to Jamaica with my family, but they got trapped there because of COVID. So I had the place to myself. And during that time, I was struggling. Animal Crossing came out. I had my Nintendo Switch, and I was playing constantly with my best friend Kim, and not engaging in the best of things at the time, but also still very spiritual, very cleansing at the time, I remember. And there was a lot of darkness coming up to be like purged. And so I remember I was like, okay, I got to look at forward steps. And this is when I planned to move in with my best friend Kim, and we got an apartment. And after that all happened, and I have a tattoo on my side from the moment that God, the voice of the divine, which I now recognize as self, came down and said, you need to relay this message that I have for you. And I remember sitting, and I was like, what the heck? And I also heard a voice that said, it's time to get off of the medications. Always follow your doctor's advice. Do not follow anything I'm saying. But I got off of all of my medications within probably a month period. And like, I was addicted to pills. I was addicted to substances. I was addicted to any form of escapism because it was so hard to be here. Why? Because I was not living in my purpose. So literally divine intervention, the tower said. And I remember rocking back and forth naked in my grandma's basement with my cat Nova, like, you know, God, and shaking. That was like the first experience, I think, of the Kundalini. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember I got my phone out and paper, and I was like, I got to write down whatever is being transmitted, and I couldn't. And now I know what that was. And so then I moved in, got a job at Amazon, was making bank during COVID, you know, and I was able to travel and listen to music and do my thing. I loved working Amazon, except I almost passed out a few times delivering packages because it was so hot in the summer. And so then I remember my mom, she was encouraging me to go back to school. And at that time I was like, I think I'm okay with working this job, and then saving up for my Reiki attunement and saving up to start focusing on a spiritual business. So the seed was then planted, and I have for years been receiving information about Reiki, and I just was like, ooh, interesting, energy healing. And then I finally had a an experience with a practitioner, and she was awesome. And I was like, okay, I'm going to learn it and I want to do this. And so that was one of the biggest pivotal moments of my life thus far, is what the Reiki, the energy work, did. I was obsessed with self sessions. I was doing sessions on myself every day in my apartment. And I remember there was so much devotion to my healing, to myself, and I lost weight. I shifted, my health shifted. I met who I thought was my twin flame. That was when I was lost in that whole illusion. The twin flame dynamic is a karmic cycle. Anything you hear about external twin flame, a person being a twin flame, is a karmic cycle that we must break through. So I met this guy. He was amazing. Well, he was a reflection of self. And so was the last person I was with. And so will the next individual. We are always in a relationship with people that are reflections of us, because we are all reflections, and love relationships are the deepest reflective spaces. The twin flame relationship or phenomena happens to be triggered because oftentimes it happens at a pinnacle when you are becoming more aware of self. So the connection to self is deeper, and thus the person you meet that is most likely going to be karmic is also deeper. It's like, whoa, this person really gets me. Yeah, it's because you're expanding in yourself. And so whether you go through a hot and cold or a narcissistic experience, or it's like you spend 10 years back and forth with an individual you think is your twin flame, the most important element is breaking through that illusion, that limitation, that person outside of you, that anything outside of you is your twin flame. It does not matter. It is a karmic cycle we must break through. So anyways, I met this guy. He brought me back to my purpose. And my purpose, guess what, is to exist. But at that time, I would have said my purpose was the spiritual business, this intuitive business. And as I was heading more into the feminine and my Kundalini awakened, I was like, whoa, this is me. Like, this is why I was so depressed, because I wasn't singing, because I wasn't expressing, because I was so serious. I was so masculine. I had to do, and prove myself. And then I slowly went into, let me sing, let me create. So there was about a year where I was just creating beats and music and not putting anything out. And I started to sing. All I had was my phone, GarageBand, and my headphones. And I would use that. And I went into this hot and cold cycle with this guy. I love him. I love him to death. He broke my heart and my part of my soul. It was actually me who did that, but he brought me back to myself. I will always give him credit for bringing me back to my music. He would come over and we would sit for hours exchanging the keyboard. He would do a line, I would do a line, and then we would sing and play guitar, and he taught me how to, do certain things, and it was beautiful. I was like, this is all I could ever dream of. I would love to travel with somebody and perform and do healing work. And so anyways, I knew things were not going to work, but I was still obsessed with this person. And I was like, even if I moved, even if I left, we would still make it work at some point. He would come back around years down the line. He's my twin flame. And I would write poetry, and my mom decided to, and my mom and I are very close. My mom and I decided to take a leap 2 years ago. I can't believe, it feels like 10 years ago. 2 years ago to move to Florida. And we traveled actually around this time 2 years ago for the first time to visit Florida. And I fell in love. I was like, I saw the ocean for the first time. I cried. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I sold everything. And my mom and I left everything behind and moved down to Florida together to kind of start our lives. And so the goal was to expand within business, get my own space. She was going to get, her space. We were all going to kind of bring the family down this way. And at that time, shortly after I moved, I had a tower moment with this individual, and that I thought was my twin flame. And literally I was like, no, never going to speak to this individual again. Well, I have spoken to him and he's awesome. But I started putting out the transmissions, but business was zip. So after I moved, I was like not getting clientele because most of my clientele was in Michigan. So I was like, okay, it's got to shift online. And I was mainly on Instagram. I had my best friend was like, get on TikTok, get on TikTok. And I was like, at this time, I was very much in the spiritual facet of things, or the stage of identifying self. We want to identify with layers of the divine consciousness emanation. So I identified with Sirius. I identified with Arcturus. I identified with energy healing, being an energy healing, wanting to master healing in every way. I identified with Christ consciousness, these specific things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it can, again, be limiting. So you want to always be open to how the consciousness can expand, because now I'm like, I'm limitless. I'm expansive. I don't want to be anything. I don't want to be identified as anything. I want to be God. That's it. And not but I want to emanate that energy and feel safe in the nothingness that is everything. That's it. That's how I want you to see me. But anyways, then I was like, ooh, okay. Ascension. Cool. New age, aliens and angels. I really connected with the golden ray energy of the angels, and the, seeing all the art and the 22 chakras instead of the 7 main ones, and all of this expansive energy. It's like, ooh, dimensional fields. And so I was like, okay, expanding. And my mom and I, was like heaven being down here when we first moved. And then shortly after, I met my past partner. And that was very igniting. That was very intense, because again, I had expanded internally. Therefore, my ability to then attract in was destined at that time. And I believe everything is as it should be. My ability to attract in that type of divine vibrational match, he immediately, when we connected, it was like I saw his name and I saw him and I said, I know him. I know his energy. And it was like two kids coming together, like, oh my gosh, it's been forever. And I remember we looked at each other's charts the first night, and it was immediately like huge paragraphs of spiritual information and all of this stuff that was like, whoa, very, very expansive. And so that relationship was a huge turning point to where I am at now. And I moved through that. I took my time within that relationship. And as I was moving through some of the initial initiations regarding the Kundalini, the life force, the divine mother energy, and so becoming a Reiki master, and then teaching. And I now have so many students, and I adore teaching Reiki. It's one of my favorite elements and aspects. I would say in this moment, I am completely liberated from the constraints of elements of the subconscious and unconscious. And I never thought I would say something like that. I have a very pure diet of intake of the things, the energy that I am intaking. I am now what I feel like completely whole at a certain level of incarnation. And the reason why I certain level of incarnation, I do not want to limit or box in at all the path of consciousness, basically. I do not want to box that in. So moving through the pain of heartache and grief and the illusion of separation through past relationships that have brought me immense pain, or through the dynamics, I grew up, many of you would relate, I grew up in many dynamics that showcased self-serving behavior versus self-sacrificing. And I immediately took on that role of self-sacrificer instead of the self-server. But instead of having that example of balance and moderation and androgyny of the feminine and masculine internally as one, which many of us don't have that example, we take on one or the other. So, you could classify as narcissistic tendencies or very self-serving out of protection from very early on in childhood or whenever. And you have self-sacrificing, which is I give and give and give and give and give because there's lack. There's an illusion of lack within. I'm trying to get something or prove something. Either way, there's a lack of polarity. So the losses, the deaths that I've experienced in my life, the relationships, especially with the opposite sex, or the romantic relationships that I've had have really assisted in me coming home to myself. And I used to always, I have my father on my nightstand. You know, he left after I was 8 days old. He was in the military. And yeah, that's him. He's really sad in that picture because he had to leave. I was 8 days. He was in the military. He was a pilot. And he ended up dying when I was, I think, 6 months. So there wasn't that establishment very early on with the father energy. And very beautiful man, very, very amazing things that I've heard about him, and even just our similarities and quirks. So I love knowing that in some ways he lives through me. But even in the womb, it's like the soul, it can be toxic at a certain level to say the soul decides what its story is going to be, how its divine conscious journey is going to be emanated, until you get to a point within where you understand what that looks like and means from a detached space. You don't deserve any of your trauma. You don't deserve any of your suffering, any of your pain at all. Yes, we have the same nose. We have the same mouth, the same eyes. One of his eyes is like weird, same. But then if I'm sitting next to my mom, people would say, oh, me and my mom look alike. But he was very light-skinned energy. But yeah, look at me. My eyes were like constantly open all the time. Anyways. So my father has always been an important pinnacle, and it wasn't until I was 21, 22 where I connected with him, because I had worked through that illusion of having lost him in the physical. And then I was able to connect with his being, and I feel his presence quite often. But in the womb, I had a twin that was a boy, and he didn't make it. And that's always been a story that I've been very interested in, because people who have experienced vanishing twin, and I was very sick. They didn't know if I was going to be a boy or a girl, or, you know, it was like, what the heck? And I remember my mom, that pregnancy, when she talks about it, it was really rough. And there were a lot of kind of spiritual experiences that said that everything was going to be okay for her. She knew, like, okay, everything is going to work out the way it should. And then I popped out and I was a girl. And I had all my limbs. I was okay. I was diagnosed with autism around 4 or 5. And just kind of being what they would call back then on the spectrum. They don't use the term spectrum anymore, but now I just view it as kind of a different way of operating or experiencing the reality. Is like, you know, I have this gift right here of sound and light, but it also is my greatest sensitivity, my weakness. And I had sinus infections every year. I was sick because I had blockages from birth all the way up until I was supposed to become conscious, more and more conscious. That's the whole point of this, is to become more and more conscious, to move up that spiral. And it's like, okay, I've met this energy before, but now I'm in a different space. And now I'm going to move back around that circle and I meet this energy again. And now that's like moving through grief. It's these spirals. Okay, it gets easier and easier as you move up, but you're still going to have to meet that energy until there's this wholeness or completion. So anyways, I had this masculine twin, and his name is going to be Christian. So that's why my name is Gabrielle Christina, and then my last name Mason. And so I did research years ago, I remember, and it gave me an epiphany. It was like, people who are experiencing vanishing twin oftentimes are birthed and they are seeking something outside of themselves because they feel like something is missing. And my whole life I'd been seeking for my other half. And it wasn't until probably within the past year that I was able to unite in a way that I felt was complete at a certain level of consciousness with that masculine aspect of self, creating a wholeness within, of rebirth, and then allowing for that space of reparenting, that structure of the masculine and feminine. Okay, I've studied these things. I now have the wisdom to apply, but now how do I make it so that I'm a balanced being and I attract balanced experiences? So this journey, I would choose the tears, the pain, the sorrow, the grief, the heartache, every element of the suffering to honor the levels of breakthrough and divine consciousness in their sirens that have come through, that have been experienced, and that will continue to be experienced. The level of physical sacrifice. And that's why they say, you know, when you've experienced a lot of pain within the physical reality, a lot of trauma, oftentimes those are the individuals that consciously expand at an easier rate or more quickly. When you know what suffering is, and everyone knows what suffering is, we can't really compare. But those are the healers. Those are the, you know, ones that really want to dig in, because when we experience suffering, we get to a point where it's like, this has to stop. What's the answer? What's the solution? So we go through these lists, we figure out what works. That's why some people are obsessed with the physical body, with diet. Some people are obsessed with channeling and cosmic energy. And you have some people who are really called to, you know, express healing through DNA and working with that. So whatever it is that your soul calls you to do, trust that it is through divine emanation that you will get exactly where you need to be. You will get to exactly where you need to be. And it's going to constantly expand. Understand that this journey is about expansion. So concepts like, you know, hearing you are the universe, or, you know, the kingdom of God is within you. It's like, okay, yeah, I get that. I rock with that. Yeah. And as you move up that spiral, it's like, oh, I'm meeting that concept again. Now it's taking on a new tone. And then it's like, oh, the kingdom of God is within you. I get it now. And then it's like, oh, crap. You know, my brain exploded. What the heck? Yes. Okay. And then it's like, oh man, I'm outside of my body now. I get it. And still the kingdom of you know, God is within you. So we see the spiral everywhere. We see the mechanics of creation everywhere. And that is why it is so important to prioritize the internal journey. This is the return of the mother, going within. It is only by going within and consulting and connecting with the inner master that we are then able to really move into that space quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker of conscious experience. And one really great thing that I would recommend checking out on YouTube is, I've seen 1144 and now I see 1155, is the Awaken the World film. And if you look up the Awaken the World film on YouTube, it's free. There's a few documentaries, the best documentaries I ever watched. It sent me into a deep spiral of like conscious experience, no matter where you're at on, you know, the spectrum of cosmic consciousness or whatever. Look it up, watch the documentary. And it doesn't give you a documentary feel. It's just this beautiful, and the visuals are amazing too, fractal energy, and it just put your Bluetooth headphones on and just vibe and watch it and hear it and witness the consciousness within. It's like, who is this vessel? Ask yourself, who is this vessel that is observing the breath? Like, who are you really? You are consciousness experiencing itself. Unfortunately, and also fortunately, we are very advanced within the mental spheres of things, which it really does not serve the being to the conscious journey. The mental body is just supposed to be used to identify. But now it's like, hey, okay, I'm identifying with this, and I identify with this, and this is not good, and this is bam, 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 and I'm seeing this, and oh, I really like that visual, and I like this, and I'm angry, I'm sad, I hate this, I can't stand this, we gotta change this. And what if the whole point of the journey is to get people into their conscious being? So then we would all be like, whoa, okay, why did we even do this in the first place? Why is this even built here? Why are we doing this to the sky? Why are we, but as consciousness rises, we are going to see every little bit of detail of how that's going to play out in terms of as we expand. It's like, there's going to be uprisings. There's going to be death and rebirth of systems. And we're going to watch the education system break down. We're going to watch the economic system. Let me watch myself because I got bananaed. okay, I don't even remember when, a couple months ago, because of, spreading potential misinformation. But yes, we when we leave here, when we move and transition out of this physical reality, out of this body, there was an epiphany I had. This is the best way that I can describe it, because I've been asking the divine in me to help me relay some, and now I get why, and I'm not even there, but I get why people speak in, metaphors or analogies to try to explain certain things. And this works, within everyone. It's oftentimes easier to speak in analogies or direct examples rather than it is to kind of explain the wisdom of the experience, because you have to experience to know it. But I was dealing with the grief of heartache, and I remember I did kind of this meditation, but I allowed it to take me where I was in front of this person that had caused me great grief and pain. And I was just observing. And I remember allowing myself to feel the grief and the pain, but also looking at this person as a reflection and understanding the combination of the two of us together and how that created a specific strain or vibration of energy together as one. And then I watched us join hands. And this was someone that had caused me a lot of pain. So it wasn't necessarily the easiest thing to be like, oh, we're hugging in this space, but it just naturally kind of happened. And I remember observing as we fell into this embrace, everything began to zoom out and we were rising. And it showed me a star and us moving into the star. And if you know, stars, every single star of the system is a sun, a seed, a semen of the Divine Father, of this ever-expansive womb, the universe that we are in, that we know of, that is constantly expanding. If you think about it, the planet itself is a body. The solar system is a body, the sun being the center of that solar system that is moving in a spiral formation, constantly ever expanding. Then we have many different solar systems that build up a galaxy, and a galaxy that builds up a great attractor that would look like a nerve system, many galaxies creating what we would call the Laniakea system, which we are a part of, that looks like a giant nervous system that is constantly expanding, that looks like a giant nervous system of a body that we are in. We're this tiny microscopic we're the cells on Earth purifying the Earth right now. And the Earth is the heart of a body, of a solar system that you are. So anyways, I watched us expand. And just like when you say the mother, father, and the son, I used to feel some type of way because I said, what about the daughter? But really ponder the son. You are the son. You are the son. We must birth the son. The father and the mother come together to birth the son, Christ. Christ was an example of that. Buddha is an example. Kuan Yin is an example. Saint Germain is an example. These are individuals that we would classify as ascended masters that would have relayed the story, whether you believe they're real or not, of cosmic mastery on the earth plane here. But either way, I watched us zoom out. This person that was a perpetrator of harm, that you could say, to my being. And in this embrace, and we became a son. And in that moment, I was able to recognize the expansion of that experience outside of my body, outside of this person's body, and say, we are one. And we are here. This is our home somewhere else. And this person gave me this karmic experience to assist me in becoming more at one with this awareness that brings me so much peace. And so while my flesh may starve, and while I may choose to feel tears and pain rather than resentment and grief and bitterness and identity, I am experiencing freedom in this moment because I chose love, which is the only truth that I stand by. So in that moment, I absolved the karma. This person may still have karma to deal with on the physical plane, but I have relinquished, I have let go. And then I viewed the collective And I saw the faces of you. And I saw the faces of my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my sorority sisters, the people that bullied me, the people that have shamed me, all the layers of being. I saw Christ. I saw everyone. Everyone that has ever possibly moved into my physical reality and will continue to. And I said, this is us. This is our oversoul. This is the body. And this is like, we are all each other. That is truly, if you're connecting here right now, we are all each other right now experiencing conscious emanation. And when you go home, and some people get scared of the idea of death, and they are scared of like, well, what if, who am I if I'm not an I? We're never supposed to be an I. And as you begin to seep into or fall into more deeply the embrace of conscious experience and away from self and identity, and I need this, and I'm this, and I'm that. As you begin to fall into that, you recognize the comfort of existence, of what that feels like to just be, to experience, and the amount of love that can flow through the body and the being. And so it's very beautiful. And some of you may want to practice that kind of meditation if you've gone through trauma or pain with a specific person, or you're dealing with the illusion of separation. Allow yourself to witness these people, this situation, this person as separate from self. Feel yourself come together with that energy. Say what you need to say, whatever it is, and recognize the beauty in your duality, in your separation, in the pain, that you still have to feel that pain. That's okay. That's a part of this process. And you are honored in that. We're all in different spaces. We can all help each other. There is not one person that is higher than the other. Why? Guess what? Because we're all the stars in the sky. Literally, you are the stars in the sky. You are already there. You have already been there. You have already been the mother and father. Remember, creation emanated. Mother, father came together, emanated down through all the different layers of being, starting with sound and light, which is what I am very big about bringing you all. Sound and light experiences, conscious experiences coming down, consciousness. Hey, we want to experience ourselves. Consciousness, creating consciousness, and we are here. And now we birth ourselves up. And now I'm experiencing higher consciousness and higher consciousness and higher consciousness. And those spirals that I speak of, the physics of cosmic bliss through laugh, through this conversation. Some of you are really vibing with this energy, and I'm very expressive with my communication. I love talking about this. I'm feeling the cosmic bliss. I'm feeling the presence of the divine moving through the screen. And, through loving, through laughing, through meditating, through crying, through whatever it is that brings out the inner child, through creating, through light language. I want to help you all experience the cosmic bliss. The root core of the cosmic bliss is the mother, the energy between the interaction of mother and father energy that create the cosmic bliss. This is sexual creation energy. Dance is great as well. Sexual creation energy, the most potent and powerful way to create cosmic bliss would then be as well to come into divine union with self and experience a heightened aspect and element of love making. I'm not going to spend much time in that. I might do like something separate on my website, but when you come into conscious union with yourself and you are connecting with your inner feminine and masculine, and they are making love, less from the physical, from the root chakra. We are not centered around feeling the easy physical pleasure of the physical body. We are moving up into the heart space and making love from the heart space more consciously. And when we move up here, we make love in Eden. We don't make love on the earth plate. And there's a complete difference to that. You can check out some of my book recommendations on my website if you're interested in learning more. There is nothing that should be experienced in terms of hiding from pleasure and hiding from the truth of love. And that is nothing that I would ever push forth. What I am pushing forth is a higher conscious experience of love in every way. So there was something else that I wanted to say. I don't remember what I was talking about. But yes, the spiral mechanics, golden ratio, Fibonacci, all of these things that create the love that you are, that we are. I love you all so much. Thank you all for flowing with me. I did a quick meditation this morning, and I literally have my bathing suit and my top